Hey everyone, my name is Francisco. This is Latin Entertainment, and welcome to Conversamos. Today's episode is on veganism and Latinidad. How is veganism practiced in a Latin American household? How it holds to labor and workers' rights? And what is your coming of age story? We hope you enjoy this episode of Conversamos.
Yeah, yo, is it that wrong? I'm making a song, I'm taking it back for the platform that I formed. Music's helping me transform. I run the reservoir, the predator.
So funny enough, my best friend in college, her name's Nancy, she went vegan for all of the reasons, for animal rights, for the environment, for health, for human rights also. That's a whole other topic. And I thought it was a load of baloney, to be honest. I was like, no, especially being Mexican. I was like, I couldn't do it. And simultaneously, I was undergoing a lot of health concerns. At only 19 years old, my health was not doing well, internally and externally, like emotionally, physically, all of it. And so I did a lot of research and I listened to Nancy and all that she told me. And I was like, I'll give it a go. Why not? Like, let me just try for a week and see what I can do. And I told my mom about it. She's Mexican, and she was like, okay, let's try it. I'll make you just frijoles and arroz, and that's it. And I stuck with it for 5 years, and I will never go back. I love it so much.
The reason I went vegan is a lot like Carolina, what she said, especially because it's human rights activism and social justice go hand in hand, I believe. And so I really wanted to, for my life choices and my beliefs, to reflect what my actions were and my values. So like compassion, empathy, respect, and kindness. But most importantly, I went vegan 6 years ago because I had my one of my cats was actually so dear to my heart, and I had such a strong connection. So in my head, I was like, wait a minute, animals are more than just I don't know, pets to me. It's just a stronger connection. They have feelings and all that stuff that all vegans say, But I think, and also obviously for the environmental reasons, and superficially because I had a lot of acne too. And one of the things that I changed, my diet changed, and then my skin changed too. So I was completely happy about that as well. And I think I'll never go, for sure, for 100%, I'll never go back to my old lifestyle.
Thank you both for sharing. Something that actually was kind of told about vegan is that there are multiple definitions. So would you mind just sharing what does vegan mean to you in this?
Yeah, I think the first definition that comes to mind is the very standard, no eating, consuming, purchasing, using animal products is like that first definition that comes to my mind. I think Tatiana hit on that supplemental definition that I would consider aligning your values to a movement. Empathy, compassion, justice, all is developed within veganism, and all, especially at least for me in the U.S. context. I'm not too knowledgeable around other countries, but in the U.S., the ways in which we treat animals and we treat workers in factories, particularly workers of color, we don't treat them well. And so all of the social justice activism piece, that is a definition that coincides with veganism to me.
And I also would add that vegan is also just really trying not to exploit other animals, because we're animals as well, but just there's really no reason to, so then why would we, basically? So everything that Carolina said plus that, there's no reason to exploit. And I understand that there's sometimes accidentally there's an argument that says vegans exploit animals because when the tractors kill the animals in the fields. That's not our intention. It's not our intention to do that. While in factory farmings, we know that these animals are going to be murdered and exploited for their meat or their, leather or whatever. So I would add that to the definition.
And this is also inclusive to fish and chicken, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, cool. So with the next question, what are the benefits of your choice for being vegan? I know you kind of shared a little bit, but more being in depth of what are the benefits of this choice?
Yeah, so I talked about my health a little bit, and unsurprisingly, with the vegan lifestyle, the majority, if not all of the health concerns I was dealing with at only 19, they all disappeared after a year of being vegan alone. Of course, there were other health components that I added in to my routine, like exercise and therapy, but definitely my diet changing. Diet, not in diet culture, but like the food I was consuming and being mindful of really, really helped my health. It also helped my skin, like Tatiana said, it helped my skin too. But it gave me also a sense of joy. Like, I did this for me. I was going through a really tough time in my life also, and being able to make a positive choice for myself, and one that would positively impact environments, animals, people, it just made me feel good that I was doing something good for once. So that, I would say, that's the impact it's had on me.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel that just selfishly, like, the benefits were my skin was better. I actually struggled with weight loss before as well, and the balance has been great. Like, even if I'm junk food vegan sometimes, like in the weekends or something, I don't have to worry about weight anymore, and I don't, because there's other things in my mind that are more pressing, and that's great. And also just to have a peace of mind with myself, and again, like aligning my actions with my values, as well as I always thought that as an activist or as a person, I felt a little bit unable to do something right away, because when you want some action done in the social sense, it's usually like through politics or like passing laws or we need to form, we need to protest and we need to do all of those things. But veganism is also, you can do immediate action. Like, you can in 2 hours when I eat or in an hour when I eat my late dinner, I can choose, that's a form of activism for me. I can choose not to have any exploitation in my plate, and like, so something completely immediate that you can do all by yourself, and every little thing counts. So I think that's like one of the huge benefits, is just the peace of mind that I'm doing something every day as a way of protesting, as a way of social justice, as a way of just being a better person.
Is it like the manner of which the animals are being killed, or is it just, for example, in factories and going through that process, or is it just being killed in general and being eaten? Because there are people who have their own individual farms who don't go to the mass production of animal treatments.
Yeah, I'm very much of a blame the system, not the person kind of person. I think that there are definitely outliers and exceptions, and I'm not one to judge those outliers and exceptions. I think the way in which, again, and I'll speak through a US perspective because that's all I know, the way the factories we have, the things that we pump into animals, the suffering that they go through, that, for me, that's what I'm referring to. I don't think it's the actual consumption of meat. My mind goes to a lot of indigenous activists who talk about the ways in which they hunt and consume meat, and how like white veganism really like shuns them or shames them, and I'm not here for that myself. So for me, it's more of the systemic here in the US, the ways in which we treat animals for our pleasure. That's what I'm not here for.
I would definitely agree with that. I do think that it's wrong to breed and to exploit a living being. So in a way, for me, it's the fact that we have to kill to that's not necessary to consume the animal flesh. But it also, it's, to me, it's not morally right to kill or to exploit or to torture, like the way that we do it, obviously the factory farming and everything. I think that is wrong, and I feel that in the perspective of Canada, which is, I think, similar to the US, a lot similar, meat consumption is usually just from factory farms, and the indigenous sort of dialogue, we have to look at it in a different lens, because our society, we don't live the way that indigenous people live. So we have to sort of deal with our situation before we even blame other people and other cultures and other in terms of indigenous, because we can actually talk about other cultures in the world that do live in sort of like the metropolis, that do live the same as us, and it's the sort of the same torture and exploitation of animals, right? So within the Western sort of society, we can I think it's wrong. And then once we like really look and we really have conversations about and solutions in our society, then we can look into the indigenous what the indigenous culture and tradition was in terms of animals and the use of animals in their culture.
Thank you, Tatiana. And so this perspective of indigeneity, I really appreciate you both sharing. I'm a descendant of Ma'an people, so I really love this. But could you just elaborate more on what you mean by, like, from this indigenous perspective of veganism, as well as going into white veganism? I didn't even know that was a concept as well.
Yeah, I only know as much as what I've learned from indigenous activists, admittingly on social media. And so just prefacing that, in that I've learned that this idea of white veganism, so think of like young, millennial, wealthy-ish, like thin white person in the US, really focusing their energy on attacking indigenous communities and the ways in which they operate, consume, hunt animals, when what I've learned is, why aren't you redirecting that energy to the systems in the US that are like factory farming, like Tatiana mentioned, that are exploiting not only the animals, but the workers, many who are people of color, undocumented immigrants. Like, why aren't you redirecting your energy there? And why are you targeting one of the most marginalized communities in our country? Like, what's not clicking? Like, why are you doing that? And that's a perspective that I want to honor and that I respect, because I agree, like, my energy, and I think Tatiana already alluded to this, my energy is best served at the systems causing the most harm. And who am I? I'm not indigenous. Who am I to tell you what your practice is right or wrong? Like, that's not my concern. So that's it.
I feel that we need to really, and again, I'm gonna like say this, we need to really concentrate on ourselves first. So the society that we live in, we can't ever just, point fingers. That's not the way to go, I think. So I think that society and veganism is connected to all social justice. Just in terms of, for example, like Carolina was saying, in slaughterhouses, I think in the US, it's 41% since 2003. I think 41% of slaughterhouse workers are Latin American or people of color. And this group of people actually suffer from PTSD, suicide. They have the highest crime in the workforce, slaughterhouse workers. There's studies that have shown that there's more crime in this vicinity, and also like there's a lot of rape, there's a lot of domestic violence within the community of slaughterhouse workers. So we need to look at that first before we even point fingers at any other culture that we as a Western society have dominated or colonized. it's unacceptable to just, you know, be blaming other people when we have so much work to do in the society.
Because you mentioned like the systems are in play and everything else, and you all both kind of mentioned it about the workers that are not just in the meat factories, but also the workers who are, you know, working in the farms, the workers like the Barrios program, for example, in the early the mid 1900s, and there's lots of exploitation that's going on for workers for growing vegetables and for growing, you know, plant-based food. So where does that come into this consciousness of a healthy lifestyle or just conscious eating?
That question reminds me of some activists, some vegans, some not, who talk about, and I'm going to go back to white vegans, the idea of cruelty-free, and how it's actually not, like, nothing you consume is cruelty-free in the United States. Partially because of mainly all of it because of capitalism and the way we exploit workers. And so when I think for me, especially from California, a lot of my family, they work in fields and picking fruits and vegetables, and just that whole experience that I've seen through the lens of my family. I haven't experienced it myself, but the ways in which they're treated, the ways in which they're policed, because of the way they look or because of their nationality. And that to me is what, for me as a vegan, that's what I'm trying to combat also. It's not just let me eat my kale salad and I'm calling it activism. It's okay, cool, I'm going to eat a kale salad. And also I need workers to be paid well. I need them to be compensated. I need them to be insured. I need them to be well kept, like, etc. So for me, it's not just about the consumption of plant-based foods, but also caring about the people who are giving us that.
For example, in the U.S. only, and I'm putting it in perspective for the U.S. because I think Canada also goes into that. It's sort of the same numbers, but 70% of the grain of the U.S. is fed to livestock. And then there's 2% of the cropland produced in fruits and vegetables are actually for human beings. So there's a lot, and completely what Carolina said, like, there needs to be laws put in place for human rights in this industry, in the crop industry. And also, I feel like if we were to tying it with veganism and with social rights, if we were to eliminate, if we were to go more plant-based or vegan altogether, I feel like there would be less demand of all these cropland and grain. Like 70% of grain goes to livestock. This could be huge for world hunger. It could be huge for families and culture. I mean, sorry, not culture. Just communities that need this. They're malnourished, completely malnourished in Canada and the US because of food. It's also a food justice issue, no? So I think that, you know, like Carolina said, it's crucial for farmers to be paid well, to be secure, medically secured, to be able to have, you know, the insurance and the benefits that everybody else has, and because it's out of respect. It's out of respect, and it's a human right, and it's wrong that we're not doing that. So again, veganism really ties into social justice issues and human rights issues.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Something actually I just really thought of even today. There's lots of, with all this food mass production, there's still hunger in both of these countries all throughout the world, and I thought that was really interesting. So for our next question, as conscious eaters, especially on health, what are your views on preservatives and other substances in vegetables and fruits? And I say that because it's happy for me to share that this is the first year I actually created my own garden in my place. Yeah, so I tasted tomato for the first time, like real, like just, you know, my God, it's so good. What else? Peppers, cucumbers, and it's not only tastes so much better, I just feel healthier, like you guys all like promoting everything. And then after I tasted how great it is, I was like, what have I been eating before? Why have I been eating that? And then what's in that out of the food that makes it so different? Preservatives is one of them. And then so yeah, to the question is, what are your views on preservatives and other substances that are in vegetables and fruits?
Yeah, that question has my mind going like a million different ways, and all of them very meta, so I'm going to try to ground it. I think, simply put, for the most part, I think all that is being pumped into not only, our crops, but specifically our animals, is just what's really killing us, at least in the U.S. Certainly other things are, but it would be ignorant to think that the hormones that are being pumped into a mother cow right before she's slaughtered, and then we consume that does not impact us. I think of, especially, like, for example, where I grew up, it was a low-income community and somewhat of a food desert. Like, what kind of meat do we have access to? Because of course there's the fancy, like, fresh, organic, grade A beef versus go eat Jack in the Box, which is a California thing, kind of like a McDonald's. And so I think about that. I think also the whole notion of mass production and monopolizing businesses and who controls what we're consuming in the US, it's such a capitalistic notion. I dream of the world, like you said, that we can just all have gardens, and that would be okay, and we would support one another and eat our own food and share our food so that no one's hungry. Like, that's wishful thinking, and maybe we'll get there. But the fact that we don't even know what's in our food, that's what terrifies me. And it's all a cycle, right? Because, like I mentioned, who has access to that better food? Who keeps getting sick because of the lack of access? And then let's talk about the racism in the health profession and who's not getting the treatment and the care medically, and people die. And it's a cycle. But we don't want to talk about that because it disrupts not only capitalism, but white supremacy. And so that's what I think of.
To that, there's a lot of vegan food as well that has a lot of preservatives as well. So we have to really inform ourselves whether or not we want to be completely 100% vegan. Like, there's a lot of people who are leaning towards a more plant-based diet, and they say, maybe I won't go all the way, but I'm going that way. There's a lot of food out there that has preservatives that is plant-based, right? So we need to really just inform ourselves about certain types of food, and really try to support local farmers. Farmers markets could be expensive, but also I think it's education from the bottom, like kindergarten, like start gardens in our schools. And this is like a huge, I feel because of COVID, this should be a systemic change completely. Like, education should be completely organized to start getting education to garden ourselves, to be able to taste the deliciousness of an organic tomato as opposed to a frankenfood tomato. And we have to question the big food companies because they're the ones who have the monopolies, like Carolina said. And these companies, whether or not we are paying attention, they are sort of hearing vegans in the US and Canada. Now you see that there's more vegan mayo. Now you see that there's plant milk, more like plant milk in the grocery store. So these companies are paying attention. They are sort of changing their patterns into a more plant-based items. But that at the same time, we need to question that. And, it's good for now. Like, it's good for the animals. Like, if we think about it, even the monopolies, having these this wave of like new plant-based food, overall it's really great for the animals. There's less demand to kill them. But then in terms of us as humans, we do need to critical think about whether or not we want to continue supporting. And also I would just like to add about like the whole foods plant-based diet. It's pretty much just eating, I guess it's like eating vegetables and grains and nuts and seeds, but not really buying preservatives or, you know, like no fat, no added sugar. No. So this is a vegan also. It falls into the umbrella of veganism, but it really, if we were to just educate ourselves and change our habits to having most of our diet being a whole foods plant-based diet, oh my goodness, cancer would be almost like, well, I don't want to say, but it would just be really reduced. Diabetes would be reduced, and diabetes is a huge thing in the Latin American community, as well as cancer, obesity, heart disease, like thyroid problems, weight loss, problems. All of these medical things would reduce, and in result, the medical, like, we wouldn't be relying much on, you know, the pharma system. So it's really intertwined. Everything is intertwined. The veganism sort of umbrella is intertwined with different things that are happening in our systems, and we really need to start unlearning and relearning and rediscovering and like really questioning everything that's going on. And I think that's what conscious eating is, just like really looking at what we put in our bodies.
Perspective. But so with that said, with education, Carolina, with someone working in a university's setting, like how could you even foresee gardening or veganism kind of be introduced in the meal plans or any aspects of the university system?
The question I asked myself with the meal plan. Yeah, I think universities, at least the ones I've worked at a few now, like 4 or 5, their dining halls are trying to incorporate at least some plant-based opportunities, or at least vegetarian. Though they are just like, it's one section over there, go over there, and there's your one like slab of tofu maybe, and that's it. And so that can be frustrating for not only those of us who are vegan, but students who maybe now left home and are wanting to create that change for themselves. Tie in the notion of being a low-income college student and how veganism, the symbolism of veganism is that it's only wealthy people can do it. Like, there's so many barriers I think certain college students face if they're interested in veganism. I think that universities, the culture of college living does not support a vegan mentality. I think in this country, as a college student, you're barely even eating. And if you are, it's just like a burger or just French fries or just chips, and chips that are not vegan. And you're just go. And we don't teach young adults, or we don't teach anyone to just sit and put good into their bodies. It's not something we teach people in this country. And so, of course, colleges aren't going to perpetuate that. And of course, college students aren't going to put that on their priority list when they're over here stressing that if they get a C, their whole life is ruined. And that sucks, because we should be prioritizing not only our own health, but like what we've already talked about, the justice that comes with animal rights and human rights and environmental rights. We're not prioritizing that as a system, and institutionally in higher ed, we don't prioritize that. We just pump people in and out, grab a hot dog on the way out, and that sucks. I feel like we can change that, but it's a big cultural thing in this country, and it's hard to change culture.
So because we live in such a technological advanced world, I feel like it's a little bit more near, like the future of veganism in the university student culture might be a little bit sooner than we imagine, because now you can actually get really delicious like hot dogs that are like from like companies like Beyond Meat or something that actually have the taste of meat if you like that, and like chicken nuggets and pizza and cheesecake and anything that you can imagine in terms of like just the traditional diet. Definitely there is a vegan version. So what we need to do as I think as a society is just continue planting those seeds of like plant-based diet and trying to not exploit animals, because at the end of the day I think even if this is like junk food, and I understand that that's not our ultimate diet, but for students, like Carolina says, like for students, they don't really care about that part of their lives right at that moment. They care about their grades, and they care about studying, and they care about maybe even partying, right? So they're going to be choosing the really fast food element of the diet. So that's when we put all of how we can actually start transitioning into a more whole food plant-based through plant-based junk food, right? And then from there then people are at least cholesterol free, and there's less even if you do choose like sort of junk food plant-based, it's still much healthier than the counterpart. And also it's just transitioning into like agriculture, like more planting our own gardens. I think that's the end result of it all, and we're in a huge transition. But I feel like right now it's like sort of expensive, but the more demand, the more people are starting to wake up to more healthy eating, more about like the treatment of humans and animals in this whole industry, the more that these companies are like, okay, they don't want to eat ribs anymore. Like let's invent something, or like let's create something that's like plant-based but tastes sort of like ribs, or like almost like ribs. And then so there's the more choices that there is in universities, and that's what I think what we need to like work on, right? The more choices, they're gonna have two exact same burgers there, one plant-based that's delicious, and one that's beef and so much energy, so much water, so much land, so much soil, so much torture, so much suffering in this patty, right? Which one are they going to choose? If both of them are delicious, one is without cholesterol and one is like just gives you more energy and less fatigue. Of course, they're going to choose the one that we hope, right? The one that's plant-based, because they almost taste the same, and that's sort of like the end goal, right?
So what is everyone's favorite vegan dish?
Well, I love to cook. It's literally my favorite thing in the world. And when I became vegan, so I loved cooking before I was vegan. I love it even more now that I'm vegan. And I've had to convert all of my famous homemade Mexican dishes into vegan. And it was actually a lot easier than I thought. And so my favorite dish that I make and that I love to eat is tacos de papa, which is like a very traditional, at least on the border, like Mexican dish. And so I make it with obviously potato, but no cheese, unless I want to use vegan cheese sometimes. But I add, instead of chorizo, it's soy rizo. And it's so good. And, you got your side of frijoles and arroz, and it's good. And listen, I've cooked it for all of my student staff. So all the years that I've supervised students, like to the amount of 20 19-year-olds in my apartment eating these tacos de papa, none of them vegan, they love it. Like, unless everyone's lying to me, which I hope not, but everyone has said that they loved it and they want more. Like, people come not for seconds, but for like thirds and fourths. And I sound like I'm hyping myself up, but I just love vegan Mexican food. I recommend someone to try it out.
I love vegan Mexican food. Like, that's, I think, one of my top like foods in the world. I love just trying out different foods from around the world, and Toronto is like a huge, great city for that. So right now what I'm really into, and I love food overall, I really love food. So, but right now what I'm really into is Thai food. Thai food is like the bomb. It's like all the spices, because you know how many spices there are in the world. There's like thousands upon thousands of spices in the world. So Thai food is just one of the like very I love it. It's just I'm sort of exploring right now like curries and like coconut milk in things with like, you know, noodles and like tofu and broccoli, and it's just like it is very rich, but it's so satisfying. And the bay leaves and everything. So I think, and then sometimes, you know what I do? I get a little bit of that inspiration from Thai food, and then I sort of cook like, you know, the traditional maybe like lentils and rice or like beans and rice, and I put like a little bit of curry in there. So it's just like a fusion of different cultural just goodness in a plate. And I also really like to cook, so I do that all the time. I'm exploring different things, and so yeah. But right now, I think would be Thai food would be my like top right now. Like I'm thinking about the weekend to like go to like a Thai food restaurant and like, well, get like takeout, but you know, you can't sit in the restaurants right now. But yeah, I've been thinking about it since Monday. So yeah.
Nice. And just Tatiana, just real quick, are there any Ecuadorian or Andean-based vegan meat dishes? Just because I'm Bolivian, so I'm just, you know, I mean, like Andean people, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I remember in Ecuador, this is like accidentally vegan, but in Ecuador you go and then there's vendors in the street, and they sell, and this is accidentally vegan, right? They sell ceviche de chocho. You know what chochos are?
Oh, yeah.
They're like the little like they're beans, but they're like white and they're like chewy. But so then they have, but it's like it has nothing, like they don't have any mariscos or they don't have any like fish or anything. They just have the ceviche. They put the chochos and then they put the plantains, like the plantain chips on top, and then they give you in a little plate, and then you can just like walk around the city with like a ceviche, like eating it. That's really, really great. Like I love that it's like accidentally vegan. So whenever I'm like in Cuenca, where I was born, it's like, and there's a few vendors around the city, so it's like if I'm hungry, like I don't need to be worried about, oh, like what am I gonna eat, blah blah blah. I just like, I know where to go and get my ceviche de chocho.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So with our next question, how has your family supported or responded to your life change and pursuit towards activism?
My family, so I'll speak about my parents because it's just the three of us who lived together back when I lived with them. They're supportive. They were like, you do you. Like if you feel like this is going to help you, we support it, which I'm very thankful for because I have heard of horror stories just in the Latinx community in general, with family just not being supportive. My extended family, I think, are a little more concerned and like, she's gonna die if she doesn't eat meat, which I don't know where that comes. I know where it comes from. I think especially my mom, because me and my mom cook together. She's been so supportive. Whenever I go home to visit, she has like my calabacitas ready, my squash, zucchini, beans, rice, avocado. Like she has it all set, which I really appreciate. I think my parents don't fully understand the scope of why I went vegan. I think, unfortunately, and this is a whole other conversation, but they saw I did lose a lot of weight when I went vegan. That wasn't my intention, but it happened. And I think we praise people who lose weight, which is very problematic. And my parents saw that and were like, that's good. Like vegan equals she's not as big as she was. So we're going to celebrate that, which is not, to me, I don't think that's a good thing. Nonetheless, it's what helps them support my vegan lifestyle. So there's that.
So 6 years ago when I went vegan, my parents were also open-minded about it, but they were worried as well because they were like, I don't know, like, are you going to be malnourished? Like, you know, we agree. I mean, if you want to do it, but you have to like, you know, where are you going to get your B12? Where are you going to, like, and at the same time, I did lose a little bit of weight. What really happened, what was a huge sort of changing moment in my family's life is when my dad got diagnosed with he had like angina, and the doctors diagnosed four arteries in his heart were completely filled with plaque. Mind you, he didn't eat that much meat. Like, we weren't big meat eaters from the start, but there you saw his heart being like 99% clogged with the cholesterol. So he didn't have a heart attack, thankfully, but he had to be rushed to the hospital and get like everything cleaned out and like have a quintuple bypass. No, sorry, quintuple. I forget what it is, but it's like the heart surgery. It was very, very scary for us. I told my dad to take veganism seriously. And he started doing his research, and then he said, I want to live so I can see my grandchildren. So then he actually, it's been 3 years that he's been whole foods plant-based. So he's actually, he's vegan but first it was for his health, and then he became vegan for the animals as well. But that's the diet that I'm telling you, that there's no added fats, added sugar, added sodium, and it's just like the whole foods. And actually he's been really thriving. My mom, out of solidarity, and because out of the 6 of us, now there was 3 of us that were sort of going into that path, she joined him in the whole foods plant-based eating, and then now she's also vegan for the animals. But every time that he goes to the doctor, the heart doctor, they are lessening his medication for his heart disease, because they're saying that his like everything is really well, like his blood pressure, all of the things that should be going well are going well, and he doesn't need that much medication for his heart, even though this was genetic. And I think because of that, my other siblings are more of like leaning towards veganism. My sister has been vegetarian for a long time. She's almost like I think maybe 70% vegan. Like, there's little that she eats, but we're still like sort of encouraging her, and and then in terms of my extended family, they've been really open-minded to it. I'm not gonna lie, like I think that it's they've been really open-minded, and they live in Ecuador, right? So right now I'm like trying to like veganize a tamal. And I'm like, okay, instead of egg, why don't you season the soy chunks to make it into like a little bit of a chewy kind of eggy thing? And like for the pollo, why don't we get like some kind of mushroom or like jackfruit, and we'll like season it with the same kind of seasoning as pollo, and then it'll be like just a delicious tamal. Because we all know that the raisins are what makes the tamal, the little sweetness, right? So I'm just extremely happy, and like the more that we talk about it, I feel like the more we plant seeds, the more people just wake up because of compassion and because of health, because of environment and all of that.
I really appreciate that. So how can 18% of Latinas in poverty, or even in the middle class, have the accessibility to be vegan?
I think that goes back to my statement around like blaming the system and not the people. I think even like there's an argument that being vegan isn't so expensive if you don't purchase like the Beyond Meat, for example, or the vegan cheese. Like a pound of beans is cheaper than a steak, for example, right? But I don't even want to consider that notion, because to me the blame is on the system. Again, in the US, right, like we don't care about the health and wellness of low-income people in general, and then tie in other identities like being Latinx, like that's another marginalized identity. Like this country doesn't care about your health and wellness, and what like wellness especially, like how long you're going to live, and if you're going to live a fulfilling and healthy, happy life. And so for me, like we need to change the system that makes it inaccessible. I referenced like food deserts before. Like there are people who live in communities that don't have like grocery stores, or if they do, there aren't organic or whole foods, you know. We need to change that so that people can have access to that. And education, like Tatiana talked about. Like, I didn't even know what vegan was until college. Like, first of all, like, that's not even a word in my community. Not only, like, how do you say vegan in Spanish when you go back to Mexico and talk to your family, you know? I think now it's becoming maybe a little more mainstream, at least on the border. Like, I'll say, like, I'm vegana, you know, but even that, like, how do you even talk about it? And there's so much to be done, I think. And those of us who have the privilege to have that access, like, I think it's on us to make those changes in the countries that we're in, to give people the choice. Like, I'm not here to force anyone, but I want you to at least have the option so that you can make that informed decision for yourself and your community. And I want you to be able to do that, and it won't be a burden to your pocket. It won't be a burden to your lifestyle. I just want it to be easy so that I could benefit you and benefit all that we've talked about, all the other external factors.
And I think it really starts with educating people, like from kindergarten, even from daycare, you know, like from the daycare up to, you know, university, master's. Like, I feel like we need to have a foundation in terms of what is just food and what, like, healthy, like what is healthy in our day to day. Also, so Carolina pointed out, it's like a systematic problem. We need to completely revamp all of that. I do want to get into a little bit of the more like the really practical things that we could do day to day. So a lot of minorities don't have access to whole foods, you know, like the big companies that are organic, and, like, you know, we have access to grocery stores and corner stores, and sometimes we have food deserts as well. But what I wanted to just point out is that, for example, rice is very, very economic. So are beans, and a lot of the things that we do in the Latin American community revolve around rice and beans, you know. And so I feel like if we have that foundation, and if we have, humans are so imaginative. Humans have done so many things in terms of technology. Like, we can make, like, chickpea patties now, and we can put so many cool, good spices, like, you know, in our corner store or bodega, or, you know, there's so many spices from all around the world. Like, and the internet has helped so much. So we don't necessarily need to buy all these, like, high-end meats, like Beyond Meat and stuff like that. Maybe, yeah, for a treat, it's great. And, you know, like, same thing goes for, like, non-vegan. Sometimes, you know, like, you budget your money for, like, your grocery for the month, but, you know, you also budget to go out and eat something like, you know, at a more expensive restaurant because you like the food. Same thing with vegans. I feel like, you know, we have our budget, and, like, we have our rice and our beans and our garbanzos and, like, our tofu. Tofu is, like, it's, like, really inexpensive, and there's so many things that you could do with tofu. You can marinate it, you can fry it, you can ferment it, you can, like, you know, make soy, like, milk. There's so many things. And then we have a little bit of we spend a little bit more on those treats, right? Like the Ben and Jerry's, like, non-dairy, like 7-layer peanut butter ice cream, and, like, you know, like the pizza and the Beyond Meat pizza and stuff like that. Like, we have those little treats, but I feel like it's inexpensive to be, like, you know, like, it's a myth that, like, you know, you have to have money to be like, you know, plant-based or vegan.
With that said, that is all the time that we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on all our social media outlets and podcast platforms at Latin_entertainment, and our website where we center the Latin American diaspora on Abya at www.latinentertainment.org. Tune in next week as you another episode of Conversamos.